Welcome to Summer with the Seasons Leadership Podcast, where we celebrate the season of being in the flow, moving forward, and taking actions full of energy. And today we're recording on the solstice. So really happy summer. Welcome to summer. And I'm in, you can see, in a different spot. I am at the Anglers Roost RV and Campground in Hamilton, Montana, on the Bitterroot River. I am on a road trip, a summer road trip with my brother and my sister-in-law, and we are having an adventure. I wanted to do this podcast from the Calistoga wagon where I am staying, which I have never done that before, Oregon Trail style. So we're just having a great time celebrating the beginning of summer, and I hope you are too. But throughout this season, we will continue to bring you actionable advice to improve your leadership and life today. Thank you for joining me, Susan Ireland. And today my co-host is Lauren Penning, our communications and marketing leader for Seasons Leadership. We like to share a vision to make excellent leadership the worldwide standard. Learn more at seasonsleadership.com. You've experienced plenty of examples of mediocre or even bad leadership. Join us in making positive leadership the norm rather than the exception. By listening and engaging in the discussions featured in this podcast, you help us bring leadership excellence to the world. Thank you for joining us. And today we have Kathy Zerbe, retired senior director in the CRO Pharmaceutical Industry. And CRO means Contract Research Organization. She was doing this for 30 years, primarily at Quintiles, which is now IQVIA, Parexel, and Synosis. And I think I got that Parexel wrong here, Kathy.
That's okay.
Yeah, with a master's.
Parexel and Syneos, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I practiced it and still didn't get it right. Under pressure. With a master's in computer engineering, she started in IT, was the worldwide head of data management for Quintiles for several years, moved on to develop clinical trial planning and pricing tools. Her experience in line management includes managing groups of up to 250 people in 5 different countries, managing managers and engaging users. Her main goal has always been to empower people around her and help make other people's jobs easier. Welcome, Kathy.
Well, Thank you very much. It's nice to be invited.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sorry for messing up the pronunciation of your company.
So thanks for joining us, Kathy. I'm going to jump in with our first question. When I was taking a look at your bio that Susan just read for all of us, it really struck me that your goal is to empower the people around you and help make others' jobs easier. And I just was curious, what does that mean for you? Like taking it down kind of on a human level, helping make others' jobs easier. I think that's something that's a really cool goal, but it's also hard, in practice to think about how you do that as a leader. So maybe we could start there.
Sure. Well, I think I was in the unique position to be able to do that from sort of 2 different points of view. So from a lot of it was from a technological point of view. What technology can I bring into the organization, or how can I implement the technology differently? How can I arrange things so that it makes people's jobs easier to do or easier to do correctly? So especially when I was working with pricing, as you can well imagine, if you are working in a consulting company and you price out a study and you're off by 5% because you missed something, well, there goes a whole bunch of your profit margin, because that industry doesn't have a large profit margin. So people, I always feel like that there's always I guess there is possibly the one person out there, but I've worked with probably thousands of people over the years, and When people come into work in the morning, they want to do a good job. That's why they're here. They like their job. That's why they took the job. They want to do a good job. And so you can set up processes, procedures, technology, the order that you do things in. You can make it easy for people to do a good job, or you can make it really difficult for them to do a good job. And maybe you didn't mean to make it difficult for them to do a good job, but so often some of the people who are making those decisions are at a high level in the organization, and they haven't talked to the people 2 or 3 levels down who are actually doing the work. And one of the vice presidents that I worked with once said, "How come you can do this and it's effective and nobody else can?" And I said, "Because I actually take a half hour and try to do the process that I just told people I'm going to have them do." And he said, "You're kidding." And I'm like, "No, I will actually fill out the form, or try to whatever the procedure is, I'll actually try to do it." And because usually it's when you're actually trying to do it, when the rubber hits the road, that things fall apart, that things that were well-intentioned, and I understand philosophically why we want to do it that way, or you absolutely want to meet the goals of the organization, but you've got to be careful when you put legs on things that you haven't made things much more difficult than they needed to be. Sometimes it'll be a situation where someone is saying, "Oh, while we're capturing this information, we could also track something else." Well, yeah, you could. And maybe you can do that without the user even noticing. Mm-hmm. But maybe you just added 4 more steps for them to do while they're in there, so that you could track this piece of information that really isn't the goal of why we implemented this. So I think I tend to think at that higher level. You want to look at the details of the bits and pieces of the steps, the processes, the forms, stuff you've got to fill out, and think about how it meets that higher goal. And but you also need to, I guess, just be careful that we didn't make it harder than we needed to. And I in fact have been a recipient of my own, I've had created that problem myself. I created a program once, and there were me and one other guy and the whole company could use the program. That was it. Now, it was a program that was very complex. It was trying to do a very complex thing. We were really the only 2 people who needed to use it. But then they were like, "Ooh, we could get these other people to use it." We're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. No. You can't, because it assumes that all these things. And so it can be easy to put something together. And that was always one of the things I would try to be careful about. If I put something together, that if only I can use it and 2 other people, that's not successful.
Right. Yeah.
It needs to be something that everybody can use. And you can use it on the day that your baby didn't sleep last night, so you've got a headache, you're all jumped up on caffeine, and you want to be able to come in on your average day, or even maybe not your average day, and be able to use the tool or the processes. And they're supposed to be there to help you, to be an aid, to make sure things are done consistently, but to help you not forget things. But it's a tool supposed to help you, not get in your way and make things more difficult.
It sounds like part of it comes back to feedback and listening. Like, you're trying to figure out how these people are going to use something to make it easier.
Yes.
And you talk about wanting to empower the people around you. So I'm curious to pull on a little bit, as a leader, how you set up kind of a culture where people feel empowered to come forward with that feedback. Because obviously there's a lot you can do with the feedback once you have it, and make everything easier for people. But did you find in the world that you worked in, and maybe you give us a little bit more insight into what that's like, that people already felt empowered, or that was something you had to kind of help people feel like they had a safe place to come forward with things?
I guess I've worked in both situations. Mostly I've worked in places where I think people did feel empowered, but I have also been brought into a couple of situations where the last manager left for some, perhaps not the best reason, and they've brought me in to, tidy things up and set things right again. And those folks don't feel empowered at all. And they're scared and they don't know what's going on. And is the whole department going to get, thrown out, or, what's going on? So I really think that the key to empowerment is respect. You've got to respect and trust the people who work for you. Sometimes you're in an organization that there are changes at the top, and you're getting instructions from the top that you're supposed to do something, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. And people will question me, well, why are we doing it? Because we've been told that that's what we're supposed to do. Well, I don't know. And I said, I have to trust the people above me, that if I had the same information they had, yes, of course they've got information we don't have. They should have information we don't have. But I have to trust them that if I had the same information that they had, I would make the same decision they made. So if I want people to trust me and trust up, I also have to trust them. It goes both ways. And in fact, people generally don't trust you until you've already demonstrated trust in them. So I probably at a higher level of detail than most people, but if I go into a new situation, place where people do not feel empowered, I will go around and talk with people individually. I want to find out what they know about their job. What do you do all day? What's the easiest part of your job? What are the things that you do that are too difficult, that every time you're doing it, you're like, there has got to be an easier way. There has got to be an easier way, and you feel, and on top of that, you do that once an hour, So I think a lot of it is, you interviewed someone a couple of weeks ago, and he said it's about being recognized, that I see you. And I think a lot of respect is, I am going to show that I respect that person, and I know they know how to do their job way better than I know how to do their job. I haven't been doing their job, or maybe if I have, it's been years since I did their job. And it's all different now. Technology has changed, policies have changed, procedures have changed, lots of stuff. It's always changing. But I want to demonstrate that I trust them, and I want to understand what their hurdles are. Because then if I can understand what their hurdles are and put that puzzle together, a lot of times people think that they're the only person that has that hurdle. And sometimes they are the only person that has that hurdle, but there are 3 other people that have similar hurdles. And one of the, I guess my cousin says my superpower is the ability to put together those, talk to 10 different people who seemingly do completely different things and see what's in common. And but I think that's part of how you empower people. And you give them things to do that demonstrate trust in their ability and in their skills. People who report to me directly, I certainly, and even, I encourage them for people who are reporting to them. But what do you really want to be doing in life? Do you, are you in the right job? A lot of my mentoring, probably half the people I have mentored over the years ended up doing something different. Maybe not wildly different, maybe a different department in the same, a different section in the same department, a different focus, but sometimes wildly different. I had one admin assistant who became a travel agent. So, but again, I think that's helping people to do their best, to be their best. Like the gal you spoke with last week, who was talking about, working so hard and working, burning out. So sometimes helping people to be their best.
Yeah. Oh, I just wanted to say that was Patricia Zinneker, so people can make that connection. Yeah.
Yes. And one of the reasons why people get burned out is because it's not just about people doing their best work. about people doing their best. And I also, reached a point of burnout. I think when I finally quit working, I, kind of slept for 2 months. I was so exhausted. But when people are burned out, when they're overextended, when work continues to try to break in on people's personal lives, like you ought to be working 60 hours a week. No, you shouldn't. I don't want you to work 60 hours a week. I want you to have your own life and your own interests. And I want work to be a big part of that, and something that you enjoy doing, and something that you're proud of, and that that you're being successful in. But you're going to be most successful at that if you have a balance. And there is always a point in everybody's job when you've got to put in those really long weeks, but it shouldn't be week after week after week after week after week. And there's some people who are workaholics, and that's what they like to do. But I generally, and I have to respect that when I have had workaholics who report to me, but I really try to encourage people not to make that choice. I guess personally, I don't think that's in general the healthiest.
Right. Cathy, I'm curious because what you're describing, is somebody that I would like to work for, right? Somebody who respects me and wants me to do my best, and also is doing her best to make my job easier. I mean, couldn't be better boss. But I know, with the positions you've had and the huge responsibilities that you've had, there's pressures on you too, right? That maybe you might not be treated the way you are treating your employees. So how do you balance that and not have it flow down? Like the stress that you are getting from your higher ups, and then, how do you block it?
Well, I have a very honest answer. I'm not sure it's what you want to hear, but
We want to hear it honest.
I have a strong personal faith, and I don't handle those issues. God does. But I think it also, from a practical point of view, is very, very helpful to have somebody at the level above you, your manager, or if it's not your manager, someone else at his or her level, who is in your court. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it has not been my direct manager, sometimes it has been, someone else at their level who I could go and talk to, have lunch with, whatever. Politics are not my strongest suit. They never have been. And it's part of why my sweet spot is being a director, senior director. It is not being a vice president. I have been an acting vice president before. I do not like it. I am not good at it. I can do it, but I don't want to. But if you hire me to be a manager, I'm going to make director level comments all day long, because that is just the level at which I think. I can't help it. But it does help to have someone, and the reason why I say someone at a level above you, even if they're in a different department, or they see things from a different level than you do. So venting to someone who's at your own level ends up sometimes becoming kind of gossipy and not really helpful. It can be good and can be helpful, depends on who the person is. But talking to someone who's seeing the organization from a level above you, I think, can be helpful when it comes to garnering support. And that is a huge part of leadership excellence, I think, is influence that you have over other people, and recognizing that actually every single person in the company is a leader, because every person has influence over other people. And we tend to think of leaders as, people who have influence over a lot of other people, but, they're also groundswell organizations or issues that have happened, and that is starting with the leaders at the bottom.
Right.
And they're very important.
Right. Well, that's super insightful to me, because engaging with other people around you, people who have the different view or perspectives from the organization, can really help us see wider than we can, right? And you said you're not good at politics, but maybe it's a way that we think about this, I mean, I agree. If I call it networking or whatever, it's actually using the resources that you have most effectively. And it's people, it's connecting with
It
people and
is.
relationships. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. And the life is all about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom line, it is. And another, I guess, just actionable thing, and I have done this before, and it's, a lot of people would say it's not the smartest thing to do, but I do it anyway. If I feel like I have someone in particular that I keep butting heads with, if I have an opportunity, I'm likely to try to spend some time with that person just one-on-one and find out why are you butting heads? Am I doing something you don't like? Am I a threat to you somehow? What's the problem? And sometimes you end up finding out that it's about something else entirely different. It wasn't about you at all. Or you do find out that you're both trying to do the same thing. And I spent enough time in the DC area, I guess, to know, you get all your chits together and then you call them in as you need them. And I generally have a lot more people who owe me than I owe. And I sometimes have gotten in trouble because I do too many things for other people. I'm in trouble. But we're all working for the same company. And so really, if we're all working for the same company, we want to help each other out where we can. And I think that I like a company that has that approach. And I'm very blessed that the companies I've worked for have had that approach.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've got just a lot of self-awareness. Was listening to how you were talking about, you know what level you want to stay at. That's like your lane. And then just what kind of companies you like to work for. We talk a lot about values at Seasons Leadership, and how when you're kind of in that sweet spot in your leadership was when, your values are kind of matched up with what you're doing and the situations you're in. So I think we've already gotten to it a little bit, but I wanted to kind of poke at what you would consider to be sort of your core values, and maybe what have you done when you found yourself in a situation where they were not being respected or were not the center, and kind of what you did about that.
So I guess probably integrity is about my core value. And that to me is about, doing the right thing and treating people the right way. And I have quit jobs over that. Not after trying to address the situation first, but and then that was actually my second job. I was, just a worker bee, and now that I look back on that, I see many different ways I could have handled the situation differently. But at the time, I didn't know so.
Right.
But I was all bent out of shape that they were doing the wrong thing. I wasn't going to be part of it. So I think I guess that sort of answers your question. It also plays out. I mean, back in the days when you had an office, I'd have a sign underneath my nameplate, that had a quote, people believe what you do.
Right.
People believe what you do. Now, I
Yeah.
don't remember who said that quote, but, so I try to, I think it's important. You've got to walk the walk yourself. You've got to try to walk the walk. None of us are perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. We're going to hurt people's feelings. We're going to make the wrong decision. We're going to, the only thing that anybody can ever do is make the best decision they have with the information they have at the time, which is never all the information. But I do think that I guess one of the other actionable points that I have is there's something going on in your group that you don't like. You're doing something to contribute to that. You may not recognize what it is, you might not realize what it is, but you need to go home and think about that. And sometimes it's your boss that they're emulating, and it's hard to, that's really hard to be supportive of your boss and the organization, even though you don't agree with everything they do. But that's usually when I say things like, well, you know, they're aware of information we don't have, and we wouldn't even want to know.
Yeah.
So we've got to let them do their job, and we just, you know, it's important for us to do our job, and the whole organization will work together if we can do that. So we're missing out on something that person is aware of. We want them to trust us. We've got to trust them.
Right. It also feels like, Cathy, you've got, there's like Lauren said, it's huge self-awareness, but also a level of courage to be able to speak out, take action, align with your values. And that's not, I mean, that's easy said, you know, but actually when you're in the moment or the event, it's sometimes really hard. So, and
Yep.
you've done it all these years and been successful.
Well, thank you. I guess I do demonstrate some courage sometimes. I guess the other thing that was Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People came out when I had just been promoted to being a director. And he actually came to speak in the Research Triangle Park in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I got to go see him at a 2-day conference. And I know it's an old school book, but when you talk about values, and it is, I certainly practice that a lot. And I found a lot of the tips in that book to be very, very helpful.
Yeah, it's worth a review. I have that book and I've read that book,
Oh.
but it's been a while since I've
Yeah.
I'm gonna take it out of the bookshelf and take a look at it again. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I was also just kind of circling back to something we talked about a little bit earlier. You were saying to find someone in your court. And I just, as you were talking about how you stand up for what you believe and integrity, and how maybe looking back on, that situation you were in earlier in your career where you were like, this is against what I believe in, I'm out. Maybe you could have handled things differently. I'm wondering where, along the line you found that great nugget of like, I got to find someone outside of the level I'm in that can give me this other perspective. Because I wonder if maybe that's part of, maybe one of the strategies you would have employed later in your career if you were finding something to be against what you were feeling. And I've certainly been in those situations in work where, when you're talking to your peer, it feels really gossipy, about the situation you're in. But I think for some people, it can be really hard to find that person who's a level above. So I don't know if you've got any tips on how you went about that, or how you found that person to be in your court, but not in your level.
Well, I think that I don't even, I guess you start looking for it. I mean, I had a person who actually was a peer of mine at the time who encouraged me to find a mentor. And so I went looking for a mentor. And a mentor doesn't even have to be in your own department. They don't have to be in your own company, but you have to go sort of looking for them. And I found one, and I've also served as a mentor for other people.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know Debbie and I encourage everybody to get a mentor, and maybe more than one.
Yes.
Right, because
Yeah.
in here it can't be everything to everyone. So you kind of get a
Right.
team on your team. You have a
Yeah. Yeah.
team Susan or team
And
Kathy or team Lauren.
the people who are, and of course, the person who you want to have be your mentor is a busy person and they don't have time to do it. And so sometimes what I would do first is just ask if they would have time to have coffee with me or lunch. And I don't know what people do in this WebEx world if you have virtual coffee. But sometimes
Yeah.
and then to say, well, this is really helpful to me. I have, to say, I have something I'd like to discuss with you. Could we get together for a cup of coffee? I just need 15 minutes of your time. And then you've got to honestly be respectful and only take 15 minutes of their time. But then you can say, this was really helpful to me. Could we do this once a month? Mm-hmm. So sometimes if you ask someone to be your mentor, they'll say, oh, no, I don't have time to do that. I don't want to do that. And some companies have this is again an example, some companies have very formalized mentor programs where you have to go through training to become a mentor. And then you've got to write up a report every month on what you did with your mentee. And, again, was a good idea. Yeah. But when we put legs on it, it is now too hard to do. Nobody wants to do it anymore. So a lot of the people who have been my mentors at the time probably wouldn't have said, oh yeah, I'm Kathy Zerbe's mentor. That's my role. But if I were to say to them, well, you were always one of my mentors, they go, oh yeah, I suppose I was.
Yeah. That's wonderful. It's great advice. All right. I think we might be wrapping up to the end. Is there anything, Kathy, that you would like to share with us? Something that we have not asked you?
Nope. I had written some bullet points down. We covered all of them.
Oh, good. Well, thank you.
Yes.
Well,
fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us, Kathy.
Happy to.
Yeah. And thank you, listeners, for joining us for the Seasons Leadership Podcast. We hope you take these words of excellence with you to help strengthen the organizations and communities in which you live and work. And join us in making excellent leadership the worldwide standard by subscribing to our community on Patreon. Remember, no matter what level or role, you can become more than you are today. Visit patreon.com/seasonsleadership to become a member and begin working toward your full leadership potential. We'd love to connect with you as we build our community of excellent leaders. Until next time, we hope you enjoy the positivity of this season of summer, where you are in the flow, moving forward and taking actions full of energy. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And I just want to say one last shout out to Angler's Roost RV and Campground. They have been so helpful sharing their store with me. I've got my fishing vest on and it's just a wonderful thing. I really do recommend them. If you're in the Bitterroot Valley, stop by here. Okay.